Entry 31. Yesterday, I was writing about the origins of the stone mask, so today I will write about its bizarre structure. Actually, the structure isn't complex enough to merit an in-depth explanation. Far from it, it's very simple. When human blood is splashed on the stone mask, there are needles that sprout from inside it. Jonathan called them bone needles in his documentation, and I think that's a good way to express it. They spring out and pierce the head of whoever wears the mask. And not just a short stab, those needles reach deep into the person's brain. In simple terms, that is all there is to the stone mask's mechanism. And Jonathan's notes only extend to that much detail. Even Jonathan knew nothing past that. Of course, the only way to verify what this stone mask did was through human experimentation, but Jonathan isn't the type of person that could perform tests on humans, and because of that, Jonathan's research came to a standstill there. There was some Aztec writing on the inside of the stone mask, so it seems like he approached the problem by trying to translate that, but I doubt it yielded any good results. But I, Dio, performed the human experimentation that Jonathan could not, and learned the true worth of the stone mask, albeit by accident. I am a bit hurried today. I will continue this tomorrow. Entry 32. I have found time to continue my notes. Enya the hag's mood has deteriorated, which I suppose was expected. As I feared, the Joestar group are defeating the 7 stand-using assassins she sent, one after another. Strength, Ebony Devil, Yellow Temperance, these 3 are at an irrecoverable state. I am worried. For the 36 souls of sinners needed for the path to heaven, men that lack a moral conscience like the users of Ebony Devil and Yellow Temperance are considerably valuable in this era. And the non-human stand user, the orangutan who proved that animals also have souls, the user of strength, the fact that he was defeated is a large detriment to my plans. Nevertheless, for the sake of this plan that I have been enacting in secrecy, I could not do something to arouse suspicion in front of Enya, like calling strength back. So, he had to be defeated. Of course, this is nothing devastating. It's very possible to recover. As long as I have the bow and arrow, can I not find countless more animal stand users? For example, according to rumor, the stand user who manipulates sand, which represents the tarot card, the Fool, that user is a dog. Unfortunately, it is improbable that I or Enya will win over this beast to become my underling because, from the same rumors, Avdol of the Joestar group has long since contacted him. All of this is to say, as I wrote in the beginning of this entry, I have found some free time. For now, I will push those matters aside and continue on the subject of yesterday's entry, the stone mask. Rereading my notes, I see I wrote that I had come about learning of the mask's true nature through an accidental human experiment. But I neglected to mention that even learning about the bone needles was an accident as well. Jonathan challenged me to a duel in his rage over what I did to Irina. He hit me quite mercilessly. I spat out blood, and that blood, by coincidence, truly by mere coincidence, splashed on the stone mask that was still on the wall back then. In response, the bone needle sprung from the stone mask, and it fell on the floor. Perhaps because the amount of blood was very little, the needles quickly drew back in. Because of that, Jonathan thought he was the only one who witnessed the phenomenon. But I, Dio, even in that utterly miserable state where he had made me cry, clearly witnessed this event. I saw the same thing Jonathan saw. The difference between us was that Jonathan took up archaeology to understand that phenomenon, while I, believing that mechanism may someday become useful for me, kept my knowledge secret. To write about a plan never put into motion is kind of shameful. but I still feel like I must record it precisely. If this notebook is read by Enrico Pucci or someone with a similar personality, I don't think they will scorn it, and if they do, that just means I wasn't a good judge of character. To put it simply, this is what my plan was. In order to usurp the Joestar family fortune, what I had to do, what I did because it was necessary, was first, kill my adoptive father, that man who fancied himself a gentleman, George Joestar. When I lost my options, I chose to murder him with poison, but in the primary stages, I had imagined a murder using the stone mask. I would put the stone mask on his head while he slept, splash blood upon it, thus activating it. If a brain was stabbed by all those bone needles, I thought, that person should die. At least by normal rationale, they would. If George Joestar was sent to his next life in this manner, the primary suspect would be he who studies that stone mask, as well as, apparently, the only one that knew of the stone mask's mechanism. The man's son, Jonathan Joestar. If Jonathan fell under suspicion and a case was built against him, he would of course lose his inheritance, and then, as the only son left, I would inherit everything. Or rather, I would have succeeded in my plan to take it. This outline of events seemed quite effective at first glance, and I was nearly convinced of employing this idea, but the more I advanced my thinking, I couldn't help but notice a large fault in this plan. If the heir, Jonathan Joestar, killed the head of his family, his own father, and he used a lethal weapon to kill him systematically, it was clear as day that the family name would suffer. The family's work as traders would surely be lost. It wasn't only the Joestar family fortune I wanted, it was also their honor and renown. At the very least, I didn't intend to inherit a family name with a bad reputation. Therefore, I abandoned this plan and decided to have George Joestar die by poison. At the time, I figured the method I had most experience with would be best. And then I had thought of having Jonathan meet with some accident after the excitement had cooled down. Perhaps I really should have gone with the original plan. Even if it wasn't for that letter, maybe it was a bit short-sighted to kill my adoptive father with the same method I used with my biological father. No, that's not right. My mistake was, well, there were several mistakes, but the largest mistake was that I never realized that it was not George Joestar whom I should have killed first, but Jonathan Joestar. My decision to kill Jonathan first, in the end, was largely made after my plan was exposed. All in all, it was not my best, if I may say so myself, as if I would ever really feel a sense of friendship towards him. Anyhow, I decided to revive a part of that plan, to use the stone mask, and to kill Jonathan Joestar. I will continue this tomorrow. Or perhaps I will be too busy tomorrow, so the next day. Because of the Joestars, my plan is not progressing as smoothly as I'd hoped. Entry 32. 4 remain of the stand users that Enya the Hag sent out to confront the Joestar group. Empress, Wheel of Fortune, Hanged Man, Emperor. The user of Hanged Man, Jay Guile, is Enya's son, and if I were to be so bold, his utterly wicked nature is a rare gift. Whole Horse, who uses Emperor, has a breezy personality that does not fall under good nor evil. It doesn't seem like something that would connect to the method for going to heaven, but I have a personal attachment to him, which makes him hard to let go of. To speak openly, I do not want to lose them. Actually, I think the chance of Whole Horse and Jay Guile working together and defeating the Joestar group is quite good. I, Dio, predict it. I've pondered why the assassins Enya and I sent to kill the Joestars have been defeated themselves. I believe the answer to be quite simple. It is merely a difference in numbers. They are a team. That difference would surely be an advantage in stand battles. would it not? This may be a bold assertion, but normally in battles between humans, difference in numbers is fundamental to victory. The problem in stand battles is that it is difficult for fellow stand users to form tag teams. The worst stand users want to hide their stand abilities. And I say that like it is something only other people do, but there are actually only a scant few that know my ability, the world. Enya, the Darby brothers. Did I tell Pucci the other day? The reason why one would want to hide their ability is because any strengths are directly related to weaknesses. So if you are to form a team, a partnership, you must tell your teammates everything about that ability. In other words, you must reveal your weaknesses. No one wants to make their weaknesses public. That is why most stand users act alone. Even I, Dio, do not know all about my subordinates' abilities. I may have formed this organization with myself at the top, but it's likely that everyone has trump cards that they are hiding. As a fundamental rule, stand users will often grow arrogant with their abilities and have a tendency to look down on others. On the other hand, stand users that can act in a group are extremely rare. The Joestar group seems to be a collection of such people. The only other stand users who can act in teams, as far as I know, are the Oingo and Boingo brothers. And the man with the rare quality among stand users in that he does not look down on others. The man who would rather be number 2 than number 1, Whole Horse. And because of that, the partnership between Whole Horse and J. Guile is strong. It may be possible for them to completely eliminate the Joestar group, not to mention that the traitor Polnareff wants revenge on J. Guile for his sister. There is a good possibility that Polnareff will act alone, and if his estrangements from the others cracks open a weakness in their teamwork, opportunity arises. I await good news. I await the delivery of Joestar blood. Entry 34. Enya the Hag gave me a proposal for a strategy actually worth listening to.
Lord Dio, my son and his friend are currently targeting the Joestars and the others, but there is also a plan I would like to enact behind the scenes. We may have suffered consecutive losses, but I am certain that the assassin stand users we've sent to them have done damage and never given them any time to relax their attention. Right now, they are surely doing all they can just to secure their own safety, which means their headquarters must be vulnerable. By headquarters, I mean Japan. Holly Kujo is currently in the care of the Speedwagon Foundation, but there are no stand users among them. And the only stand user there, Holly, cannot control her stand. In other words, eliminating that woman, eliminating the woman of the Joestar family, is possible. Once we've finished her off, we will airlift the body to Cairo. And if you drink that corpse's Joestar blood, Lord Dio, you would adapt to Jonathan's body much faster, would you not? And with the death of the daughter or the mother they were trying so hard to save, Joseph Joestar and Jotaro Kujo will lose morale, becoming empty shells with no will to fight. What do you think? I have already dispatched several stand users there. All I need is your permission, Lord Dio, and we can show you the death of Holly Kujo at any time. Please, consider it.
Quite a suggestion, Enya. A malicious and crooked suggestion that even I, Dio, would not think of. It is quite vexing, but I suppose you could say this is the wisdom of the elderly. Giving me this idea, the old hag was a step or two ahead of me. I may have lived for 100 years, but that old hag is so cunning that it makes me think she may have lived even longer. A low-life father would adore her. I like her sort of woman far more than holy women like my mother or Irina. If Enya were a little younger, perhaps more than a little, then I would like to bear children with her for the sake of my goal of attaining heaven. I postponed my response. But to tell the truth, I intend to reject this suggestion. If it goes well, as it is likely to, it would be a magnificent plan. But if by some twist of fate things go wrong, if it does not go as planned, I would find myself in very troubling circumstances. I carelessly laid hands on Irina. It became fuel to make Jonathan grow. That spoilt boy grew enough to defeat me. So if I carelessly lay hands on this holy woman, whose name is almost literally holy, Holly Joestar, it is possible that the same growth could be engendered in Joseph Joestar and Jotaro Kujo. Never laying hands on holy women brings better luck. Of course, I, Dio, am to partake of her blood, but I must not do so too hurriedly. I must not repeat the same mistake. Just as I should have killed Jonathan Joestar before killing George Joestar, I must eliminate Joseph Joestar and Jotaro Kujo before killing Holly Kujo. Enya is sure to be disappointed, but I will make up for that elsewhere. I now need just to wait for a report from her son. Entry 35. More time has opened up, so I will continue my entry from a few days ago. The story of what I remember from a century ago. I decided to kill Jonathan Joestar, who was raised like a brother to me in the same house, who even was legally my brother. And I planned to kill him using the stone mask. The reason was that he had exposed my plan to kill George Joestar, but even if that had not happened, I would still have had to kill him eventually, and so I just did what was necessary. That was it. Whatever was necessary. It wasn't an emotional choice. I wasn't conflicted about it either. A few days after this transpired, I stopped being human, but thinking back, I may have already stopped being human at this point. Actually, was there ever really a time when I was human at all? When I lived in that wretched town with that foolish mother and that low-life father, was there any humanity? In that dog-eat-dog world, were there any humans? I cannot even say that my mother's behavior was human-like either. But, wait. As Pucci would say, the desire to go to heaven is what makes a human human. Then, I suppose, Mother was a human, and perhaps even as a vampire with not one drop of humanity left in him, am I, Dio, also then a human? I think this is actually quite an interesting philosophical discussion, but I will only be writing about facts here. I will write only of the fact that I failed to kill Jonathan even with the stone mask. Now that I think about it, this notebook is starting to become simply a record of my failures, but nevertheless, no matter how many times one fails, as long as one wins in the end, that is enough. The stone mask was not a tool for murder to begin with. A single splash of blood produced from within the mask, needles aimed at the brain. It seemed to me originally that it could only be some sort of ancient torture device, like an Iron Maiden, but at the very last minute, truly the very last, the final instant, I realized that it was not. I am glad I did not use that stone mask for the murder of George Joestar. Jonathan was looking for the source of the oriental poison with which I killed my father and was attempting to kill my adoptive father, venturing onto Ogre Street at risk to life and limb. Meanwhile, I wandered the city at night, drunk, stumbling, bottle in hand. With my plan exposed and Jonathan now en route to finding evidence of my plan, I could not help but drink. But the more I drank, the more I lost my temper. I lost my temper at myself for drinking just like that piece of garbage father of mine. I felt like I was going to drown in self-loathing. Whether he obtained evidence or not, I did not waver in my decision to kill Jonathan. I knew how unlikely it was that he would return from Ogre Street alive, but that consolation did not ease my mind very much. My plan was already in disarray. My life was in disarray. After 7 years, my future was, and I, Dio, was at the brink of ruin. Knowing that, even if I did kill Jonathan with the stone mask, even if I killed him and made it look like an accident, it felt like it wouldn't mean much of anything. In this mood, I got involved with 2 men that were in my path. They were the type I would normally pay no heed to whatsoever, but in my childhood I was actually used to picking a fight with such people. So first I tried ignoring them, but the words they spoke made me, Dio, enraged.
Hey, you listening, young brat? Hobbling all over the place like that. Or you should sit close to your mummy when you're going outside.
Mummy. Mother. My mother. The moment I comprehended those words, I bashed him over the head with the liquor bottle. My writing has become a bit disorderly. I will continue this tomorrow. I will discuss the human experimentation I performed tomorrow.